Instance methods and object interaction. If attributes represent an object state, our methods represent its behavior. In object-oriented programming, objects are not passive data containers, okay? They encapsulate logic that operates on their own data, ensuring consistency and control. Basically, we can say that they are gatekeepers of our objects data. Okay. First one is instance methods. Unlike the static methods used in earlier chapters, instance methods belong to a specific object. They do not require the static keyword because they operate on the instance data. Okay. So let's say we are calling this one on any instance. Okay. Then our JVM knows that on that particular instance and its data, we have to call this method. Okay. Internally, basically, our JVM passes one hidden reference to that instance. Okay. And this is our something like this keyword, and we will cover that shortly. Now, object to object interaction. In real systems, objects collaborate. They don't exist in isolation. Okay. They collaborate basically. One object's method can accept another object as a parameter, enabling inter-object communication. Okay. So let's say you have another class player. So you can pass that instance here and you can do something. So here as well, like we mentioned in our previous chapters, Java will pass this one by value. Okay. So reference by value. And if we change anything with this one, then that will affect directly to our heap object. Okay. Now, methods as state guards. Methods should protect an object data from reaching an invalid state. Okay. By controlling access through methods rather than exposing fields directly, we enforce constraints. So let's say we have this one, void volume up. If that is less than 100, we can add, otherwise we can show. So this one is one use case. Why this matters? If the volume field were accessed directly, it could set to, let's say, anything or this one. And with the help of this method, we enforce valid bounds, okay, and keeps the object in a consistent state. We have one comparison between procedural and object-oriented programming, data and logic. Separated logic is in functions, data in variables. In our OOP, our data and logic is bundled, okay, create together in data and logic reside together in object. Reusability, copy pasting functions across modules, instantiating new objects with built-in logic. Scalability, hard to manage as code grows. Each object is a self-contained unit with its own responsibility. Okay. Now we have quick summary and we can move forward with our next chapter, which is Object Lifecycle. Object Lifecycle creation to garbage collection. In languages like C++, developers must manually destroy every object they create. Java uses a managed memory model where the JVM handles cleanup automatically. Understanding the three stages of an object's lifecycle is still essential for writing efficient code. So every object in our Java goes through three stages. First one is creation, second one is usage, and third one is destruction. So first one, creation. We call that instantiation as well. When the new keyword is used, three things happen. Declaration, a reference variable is created on the stack, and allocation, JVM allocates a block of memory on the heap, and initialization, the constructor runs. Now, what is a constructor? We will see that, but you can say also you can assume that this one is one method that runs and that is responsible to initialization of our particular instance state. Okay, setting up the object's initial state basically. And in this case, in this class definition, we are not providing any constructor. That means our JVM will provide one default constructor, okay, with no arguments. That means everything here will be initialized with their default values. In name, our JVM will initialize this one as null, and this one is primitive, so 0 for this one and 0.0 for this one. And all these things happen when our constructor runs. Okay, so an object remains alive as long as at least one reference variable points to it. Multiple references can point to the same object. Okay, that's fine. The null danger: if you set s1 to null and then call s1.study, Java throws one popular exception, that is null pointer exception, and the reference no longer points to any object. Okay, this one is basically that means. All right. Third one is destruction, garbage collection. An object becomes eligible for garbage collection when it is no longer reachable. How an object becomes unreachable? First one is reassignment. If you do with new keyword, the previous object loses its reference. Okay. And if you set this one to null, this one is one case. Scope exit. If an object is created inside a method, it becomes unreachable when the method returns. Okay, because that reference is now destroyed. Method returns, temp goes out of scope, object is eligible for garbage collection in our heap. The JVM garbage collector. We have discussed that. JVM has one background process. We call that garbage collector. Garbage collector that periodically scans the heap, identifies objects with no references, and reclaims their memory. We have one difference with C++ and Java, that's fine. We have quick summary here. Now we can move forward with our next chapter, which is constructor. Okay. Constructors, default and parameterized. A constructor is a special method that runs the moment an object is created. Its purpose is just to initialize the object state, so it is ready to use immediately after instantiation. What is a constructor? A constructor resembles a method that follows two strict rules. It must have the exact same name as the class. It must not have a return type. Okay, not even void. So let's say we have one class of name car, then we can define our constructor with same name car with no return type. Okay, now the default constructor. If you do not write any constructor, Java automatically provides one invisible default constructor that takes no arguments, sets all instance variables to their default values, the disappearing default. The moment you define any constructor yourself, Java no longer provides the automatic default, and if you still need a no argument constructor, you must write it manually. So this one is very important. Okay, the default constructor. So first one is our constructor runs. Basically, okay, our object is never in an uninitialized state. We can call half ready state. Okay, by the time our new returns, our constructor has finished and our object is fully set up. Okay, with default constructor we don't have to write. Okay, Java silently provides that. Let's see. So in this class we did not provide any constructor, right? That means JVM will provide the default constructor, and in default constructor we don't have to provide any arguments. Okay, like in this one. And if we try to provide a ADC, basically we will get one error here, that is expected no arguments but found one. We can define one constructor. Okay, student string a basically, and we can do name equals to a, or we can do this dot name equals to a. Okay, and that means now we are good here, but we are not good here. The moment we provided our parameterized constructor, we need to provide the same structure here as well in this creation. Okay, what we can do is we can provide something new. That's fine. New string abc. Okay, so this one is case with default constructor and parameterized constructors. Okay, parameterized constructor accepts arguments, allowing you to set initial values at the point of creation instead of some default values. All right, you can initialize your each instance with different data, right? Constructor versus method. Constructor purpose: initialize an object state, perform an action or computation. Return type: none, not even void. Must have one or void. Invocation: only at object creation new. Okay, anytime via the dot operator. So we can call our constructor only one time, and we don't have to do that as well. Our JVM will call that automatically. One more important thing is our constructors are not inherited. Okay, and we will cover that in our inheritance chapter. Now we can move forward with our next chapter, which is overloading and this, which is very important. Constructor overloading and the this keyword, that means a reference to the current object. In well-designed classes, users may have different amounts of data available at the time of object creation, right? Constructor overloading allows a single class to handle all scenarios, while the this keyword resolves naming conflicts and enables constructor delegation. Okay, first let's see how we can get naming conflict. Constructor overloading. Constructor overloading provides multiple constructors with different parameter lists, okay, giving callers flexibility in how they create objects. Now, let's say we have one class here, user profile. Why not we just copy this? Or maybe we can create one simple, I guess. We can create here. So in this class, let's say we have the string name, and if we pass same argument, okay, with name, okay, and int roll number double CGPA, okay, that's fine. Now when we do something like name equals to name, what will happen now? This assigns parameter to itself, okay, our fields stays null. This one is very important, okay. If we do something like that, that means our parameters assigns to itself, okay, and our those fields stays null. All right, let's see that. So rather doing that, what we can do is we can remove that as well for now, okay. So let's say ABC, well, and point one, okay, that's fine. What else? All right, now let's print something here, s1.name and CGPA, okay. Compile this one and run this one. So you can see that we are providing values here, but we are getting default one. Why is that? Because in this case, this syntax, our parameters assigning their values to themselves, not to the attributes, okay. So here, both sides, we have same parameter, okay. The instance variable, in this case, this one is completely hidden, and our object will create null for this time, and we will not get any compilation error as well, okay, and also we will not get any runtime error as well. So this one is silent bug, you can say that. And how we can fix that with this keyword? Let's say, how does Java resolve the correct constructor? That's fine. Java matches the constructor by the number. Okay, we have covered that, I guess. This keyword, when a constructor parameter has the same name as the instance variable, the parameter shadows the field, okay. We call that shadowing, that's fine. This keyword explicitly refers to the current object, resolving the ambiguity, okay. So when we do something like that, we also getting one warning. The value name assigned to name is never used. From IDE, we can use this dot, okay, and here we can use this dot as well, also this one as well. Now what happened here is this keyword is the reference to the current object, okay, the object this constructor or method is running on, and this dot name explicitly means the instance variable name on the object, okay, and this unqualified name means the parameter. All right, this is the basic difference and most important. Now if you recompile this one and run this one, we will get our correct output or expected ones, okay. One important thing that our JVM always internally passes one hidden first argument, okay, the reference into the method. So when we call any method here, let's say s1.study. So in this one, our JVM pass one argument, that is this, okay. This one is hidden. Every instance method and constructor has this invisible parameter, okay. JVM handles it automatically. So this is it for now. This dot name refers to the instance field. Other uses of int. This is a reference to the current object and can be used throughout the class. All right, this dot amount. Okay, that's fine. You can also return your current object with the same return type, okay, as your class is. This call constructor delegation. The previous user profile example repeats this dot username in every constructor. This violates the try principle, right? Here basically this dot username here as well and here as well. So basically what we are doing here is we are repeating these lines again and again, these lines, right, in each constructor. Basically for now here we have only 3 fields. Let's assume that we have, let's say, 100 fields, and that is normal in big projects. Writing those 100 lines again and again and again in each constructor is not a good idea. We are violating our own principle try, okay. Don't repeat yourself. So what's the solution for that? Constructor delegation with this allows one constructor to call another, centralizing initialization logic. So how we can do that? We have one primary constructor, most parameters, okay, and delegates to primary with default age. So we can call using this one. This one is important. So let's understand that we have this constructor. It will take only one argument. Okay. So when you provide only one argument, this constructor will run, right? But we have to initialize other variables as well. In our case, that means if you do not provide any other arguments, then we can provide our one default one here. Okay. And we can call one constructor that is expecting these two arguments from their method signature as well. So this will call this constructor. This will call one another constructor, which is we can say most parameters or full constructor with this value. Okay. So this is how we can chain our constructors, right? Basically, we are doing here constructor overloading, same name, different parameters. And again, our Java resolves which constructor to call based on the argument types and count, exactly like method overloading. So in your code, when you provide only one, okay, only one argument, then we will do some chaining, and from here we will initialize in single place. So let's see that. Copy this one. We can come here, we can paste that, and so what we can do is we can create one object. Okay, user1 dot display. So here we are providing two arguments, and let's create one more, user profile user2, and this time we will provide only one. Okay, that can be our string. Okay, so let's say John, let's take that. Now what we can call display. All right, and in display what we are doing, we are printing username, bio, and age. Okay, that's fine. Compile this one and we can run this one. So you can see that we initialized our variable or our instance field bio. So instead of getting null in this case, we initialized this one with something like no bio yet with our custom message. Okay, and is 0, which is fine. You can also initialize this one with any number, right? So this one is constructor chaining, and most important thing is if you are calling another constructor inside your constructor, then this line should be and must be your first line in this constructor. Now you can do something here, that's fine, something like this dot age equals to 0, that's totally fine, but you cannot do something like that. This will create one. Call to this must be the first statement in constructor body. Okay, rule, this must be the first statement. The call to this must be the very first statement in the constructor. Any code before it causes a compile time error. All right, now why this restriction? Okay, you might wonder that why we need to follow this kind of thing. Our Java guarantees that the object is initialized in a specific order. The chain of constructor calls must complete before any other logic runs. Okay, and if you could execute code before this, in this case, the object might be in a half initialized state when our delicate constructor tries to work with this. Okay, and our compiler prevents this entirely by requiring this as the first statement. That's why we are getting compilation error, or in this one we will get. Okay, same goes for our super call as well, and we will cover that one in our later chapter. So just remember that if you can. For now, why this matters? Overloading, this keyword, this call eliminates duplicate initialization logic, easier maintenance. Okay, now we have quick summary and we can move forward with our next chapter, which is chaining and garbage collector.